Good morning and welcome back to Planner Craft. I'm Natalie and today we're going to be doing a project on both the silhouette and the ScanNCut. So just let's make sure that everything is working. Did have a little bit of a glitch the first time I tried to go live, so if somebody can let me know whether it's working on YouTube or not, because that's what threw up a bit of a hissy fit this morning. It's very weird. So I did just quickly flick on there and just check that everything's okay, and it seemed to be. So, morning Deb. So I've started to put together a bit of a plan for the project. So we're going to be creating a 5x5 card. So I have a 5x5 card blank or two, just in case. And I've also sorted out some downloads as well. So this is the Pink Peonies download, which I believe is going to be free on either Creative Fabrica or Design Bundles. It'll be one or the other, so that you can actually have a go as well. So the plan is, I've got like a reef design that's part of the same bundle. So we're going to have that round the outside. And then we're going to do a bit of decoupage work as well with our flowers. And there's also some stems, so I'll just put those going out here. And also some text banners. Now, we may not get everything done in the next hour. So if so, I will continue it tomorrow so that you don't have to sit here all the way through the afternoon with me watching. So, hi Mum. Hi Christine. And welcome. So Christine, I believe you're new, so say hello to everyone. Deb is actually on our DT as well, so if you have any questions at any point, don't be afraid to ask. There will be occasions where I'm hopping onto the computer, so especially when we do the silhouette side of things, I'm going to struggle a bit more to see comments. So if you do have any questions, what I'll do is I will try and flick back frequently so that I can actually see what you're asking. So I'm going to start off with the silhouette version. So I've even put little bits of text so that hopefully I'll remember to change them so that you know which bit I'm talking about. So it's like a little visual clue. And I'm going to be working in Silhouette Studio. Now, I just need to get that onto there, across to display, and hopefully you can still hear me alright and everything else. Now, if I go down here, let's pop that on there. There we go. So you should now see that it's got a little silhouette version down the bottom. So when we're working in Silhouette Studio, and we have to work with our images and things a little bit differently, in that we have to bring them into our library and then onto our mat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by importing my different sections. So if we go down to library and import to library. Now bear in mind, if you're not streaming, everything that I'm doing will actually happen a lot faster. So what I'm going to do is I need to go to my desktop, and I actually set up a folder. So Silhouette versus ScanNCut. So I've sorted out all the images that I want to use that I've put in my little sketch. So what we can actually do is we can actually select multiple items and bring them in that way, or we can do them one at a time as we feel that we need them. So let's go for 32 for instance, and we'll go OK, and it'll think about it a bit. I knew it was going to do that on me. Nothing like it, it's testing my memory. Okay, So we can see that our images come in here. You can see I've already brought in the pink peonies one as well. So now we need to do the same for the rest of our remaining images. So we can go do the same way. And when we've imported everything, then we can just concentrate on just dragging it onto the map where we need to. Oh, don't want that one. Let's cancel that. I need to import it into this library. There's a difference. And let's go for that one. So just 2 and 1 to go. So once you've done this step of actually importing in your images, they're actually going to be there for however many times that you want to use them within your project. So that's something to bear in mind, that if it's something you're going to do frequently, it's actually a lot easier to do in Silhouette as opposed to doing it either in Canvas, if you're going to be using a ScanNCut instead, or in some other software. So if you're working in something like Affinity, you could actually create those as assets, which means that every time you're creating, you can have those on call if you do import. So that could be something like these images here, where you want to create like a series of projects using the same imagery. But it could also be things like logos. So if you want to have a logo that you're frequently using to do your branding, then you can stick that in an asset too. So now that we've got everything in there, I'm just going to hop back across to design. Okay. And over here, we can see that we've got our machine connected, so it's automatically going to recognise that there's a Cameo 4 there. You can tell it which cutting mat you want to use and also the size of the media on the mat. So if you want to limit it down to being a 5" by 5" piece of card, you can do that there. Now, because I'm going to be doing print and cut, I'm going to set that to A4. And straight away you're going to see that it's going to bring those edges in. We can go to registration marks, which is the third icon along, and turn those on. So that means that when we come to actually cut this out, it's going to automatically know where the elements are on that mat and be able to cut it. So now we can drag out our library from the left hand side, and we're still in that design panel. Okay, now we can drag things over, and at the moment you're going to see they're huge. That's fine. So what I'm going to do is just drag them in one at a time, if it doesn't go and be daft on me. Come on. Again, this is because it's having to do an awful lot of processing power behind the scenes. Come on. It's going to be dense now. I want that one, please. On there. No, not in there. On there. So you can do, like I just showed you very quickly there, that you can drag an image within an image, which can be a funky effect. I'm going to start off with just these elements. So there we go. So let's tuck that back out my way. And we have our flowers, so we're going to be able to actually create that as a little kind of cluster first. So let's scale that down. Now, as we're doing a 5 by 5 card, we can set up a guide if we want to, but to start with, because we're actually shrinking these down, it doesn't matter too much. So I've got that one kind of being over there facing that way, that one up here, And I've got this one that's being towards the back. So let's just scale that down. So by grabbing our corner point, we're going to keep that in proportion without having to press and hold shift. And again, at this point, I'm not getting tied up on order, because obviously when we're going to print these, we're going to want to keep them as individual elements. So that we can create lots of depth to our piece. So I'm just going to grab that top handle to rotate. And we can go, okay, that one's going to go there. This one, just want to scale that down very slightly and rotate it so it's a little bit more right. Okay. Then we can copy that because we want more than one, and we can paste. Twist that round. Now, in my sketch, I've actually got this kind of curving the opposite way. So what I'm going to do is, if we go to this one, I can actually flip it so that I have a copy that's going to go around the other way. And then this one, I can just rotate and go and put that down towards the bottom, because that's already curved the right way for that bit. So at the moment this is huge. So let's just duplicate that one. Okay. So I'm going to leave that one curling up there, like so. Let's just move that one. So now we can select all of those and we can resize them as a group. Now typically what I can do is I can use the grid on my map then to kind of give me a bit of a guide. So at the moment that's still a little bit big. It's not too bad. There we go. So I'm not grouping because I want to be able to separate all those elements back out. And let's move that down to that bottom corner just for now. I'm going to go back to the library and I'm going to pull it in my little pink peony reef when it wants to. I'll get there and I'll think about it. Come on, don't crash on me. There we go, and it's huge. Definitely don't need it that big. So let's pop our library back away, and then we can concentrate on just our shape here. Come on, let me get to it. If you're struggling to get to something, so long as you have a version of Silhouette Studio that is designer or higher, you have a layer palette, so this will look much more familiar to what you're used to in, say, Canvas or Affinity. Come on, let me get to it. Yeah, it's definitely having issues. Come on. Tell you what, let's go back one. So you'll notice even when you're clicking on stuff, it treats it as an undo even though you haven't actually changed anything. Something to bear in mind that if when you're working. Yeah, see, it's totally ignoring the fact that it's actually put that reef in there. Okay, let's try it again. There we go. Everybody dance on me. Come on. Dee dee. Tap dance. He's not done that properly yet. Because let's go to send and just see if it's picking that up now. Yeah, it's still not picking it up. Let's see if we can open it. So if we double click on it, it should open up as a new document. Nope, this should. So if you are having issues, you should be able to open it up and be able to, there we go, resize it that way. So I can resize it in here. And make it a bit more manageable. So again, we want it to stay well within our 5x5. I'm just going to copy that, go into here and paste. And there's our reef. Now try to ignore this big one around here because it's not actually there, believe it or not. Otherwise it will let you click on it. It's just being a bit of a, because we're streaming at the same time. So then what you want to do is you want to actually drag out these elements so that we can lay them out. So I'm just going to literally bring them out so they're separate shapes and not overlapping anyway. And you want to stay away from these grey hatched areas at the top and bottom, because that's the bit where it's going to be scanning to read. Now obviously, with all these little pieces that are at different angles, you don't have to keep them at that angle because we're going to be cutting them out and then moving them around. So before I go too far, let's do a save as, and we're going to save to the hard drive. So what that means is, rather than saving it to our library as a project that we're then going to take and do something else, we're saying that actually what we want is a hard copy of what we've got, so that at any point we can go back to that as it is. So I can type silhouette version. And it's going to have a think about it. Now, fingers crossed, hopefully, when I close that and go back into it, it will behave. Like so. So if we go down here, you can see, now that we've got the one out of the way, that this tip just here is just into this grey hatched area. So we just need to move that up and out just a little bit. And we can lay these out accordingly. So I'm just going to move that up there a little bit. That one can go down there. This one can go down here. And at this point, you could print that and cut it if you want to. if you want to do a little bit more work before we actually print, so if you want to save your card, you could carry on and put some basic shapes in there and things like that. But we could also do some curved text. So what I'm going to do is, rather than do that today, I'm going to actually get to this point and print it so that you can actually see what it looks like. And then we can always use some more of the same card tomorrow to do the text. Just looking at time so that those of you who have a ScanNCut can get to see what you can do there. So I'm going to go to print. Just going to think about it. And there we go. There's our copy ready for print. So you want to check that you can see your registration marks nice and clearly, that they're not being cut off by your printable area. And we can type to go print. And I wanted to take from the manual feed because I should have some card ready to go. Make sure that you haven't accidentally got black and white selected. And we can also say that it is going to be thicker because it's going to be card. So if we go to photo glossy, that'll probably be a bit better for it. Okay. And I'm just going to check that my card is ready to go through my manual feed, and fingers crossed we'll get a copy printed. Okay, so as long as we have that original project saved, we don't have to cut it immediately, so I can tell that to print and hold on to that copy until I'm ready to cut it. And you'll also see that if I go to send, because I've used the PNG version of the files where we've got a transparent background, it's already done my cut lines, so it's nice and easy. Now when we go across to our ScanNCut, it's not quite as easy. So I wanted to show you a couple of ways we can work with them. I knew he was going to throw a hissy fit on me. Come on. Be a good printer. Needs a little bit of helping hand occasionally. There we go. So that I can see questions in that, I'm going to quickly hop back overhead so that you can see the print and I can see the discussion then. Let's have a little look. So glad it doesn't happen only to me. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it is quite a lot to expect a computer to do at the same time, you know. Streaming itself is quite processor intensive because it basically ends up having to compress the video into the format that YouTube likes on the fly, which usually, if you're uploading a normal video, you would know that can take sometimes an hour. And we expect it to do it like that on the fly. So there's our first print, and we can see that we've got our flowers ready to go. The colour is interesting because I've picked a paper that has a mica in it. So this is 280 GSM card, so it's kind of at the top end of what I would put through my printer, so hence it has a little bit of a wobbly when I don't give it a little bit of a helping push. But yeah, it's a nice card. So I'm just going to change over to the ScanNCut version now. So, to do any kind of printing, if you don't have the Print and Cut add-on for Canvas, you need to use something other than Canvas to do your printing. So again, I'm going to refer back to my little sheet here so that I know where I'm going, and then we can take that across into our software. So normally at this point I would hop across to Affinity and do it in there, and that is absolutely fine as an option if you want to do that, and then use Direct Cut to cut the elements out. But I've done so many videos on doing that, I'm sure most of you could manage to find a video where I've done that before. So I thought I would do something a little bit different today. So I'm going to go back to my display, and let's just change the text to the ScanNCut version. So I'm going to be working in Illustrator, and with Illustrator we have a tool that is known as the ScanNCut link. Now Illustrator is very much having a wobbly today on me, so let me just see if I can help it out a little bit. I'm just going to exit from Silhouette Studio, so I'm just going to save what I've done so far just in case, and then quit. Help it out. There we go. Now, with the ScanNCut link, we have the option of adding registration marks. But because we're doing this in Illustrator, it doesn't always see your actual printable area, so it will automatically try and put them in the outside corners. So at the moment I have an A4 document, but what we actually need to do is actually shrink that in a little bit. And Illustrator is really hating me today, just because I really want to show the ScanNCut link. It's being annoying. Let's just cancel it. Come on, let me see the... Can you tell it's done an update? It's like, hello, let me see the menus. And it only shows me when I click off them, so come on. It's like, guess where the location is for the ScanNCut link? It's somewhere down here. Come on. Up a little bit. There we go. So, go to ScanNCut link, and then, believe it or not, there's a little pop-out menu that should come out. Shall I go away and come back to it? It might sort itself out. Then let's go back overhead and see if I can fix it. Quit out of it and go back into it. But yes, the card I used was from Limetree. It's nice to use something that has that kind of metallic sheen underneath it, because it does come through, especially if you're using an inkjet printer. So you get like a sparkle to your pieces. Especially if you're then going to map that onto a matte white cardstock like this. If it still misbehaves, I'll do an Affinity and talk you through how I do it in ScanNCut link. Because it looks like it's still going to play up. Can you tell it's done an update? Yeah. Illustrator's just not a happy bunny, so let's quit out of that. Let's fine, I'll do it in Designer. Just wait for that to load. So any questions while we're waiting? Come on, Affinity. Even Affinity's struggling today. Ding, ding, ding. It's the only thing now running. Come on. I just knew it was going to be one of those days when it didn't want to connect to YouTube this morning, and that was like, okay, we're going to have one of those. Which way is your favourite way to do this? Which machine? Okay, so the ScanNCut link with registration only works on the SDX machines. And that is so easy. Normally. Normally. So it's a super duper quick way of being able to do what you'd usually do in, say, Canvas, but being able to do print and cut as well. So we've actually done quite a few different things with ScanNCut link, including doing like project kits and things. So as long as somebody has an SDX at the other end, you basically give them the file, and it outputs to a certain file type, not necessarily FCM, because of that registration, so that it can do that automatically with very little user input, which is what I really wanted to show you today. The silhouette, again with the registration marks, means that you're going to get a perfect cutout that's aligned to your print. So either one of those two options when you're doing print and cut are fabulous. So, you know, they work, usually. In terms of going beyond print and cut though, if you are only ever going to cut card and vinyl, then the ScanNCut, I think, hands down will win. Because at the end of the day, neither material needs a lot of thinking about in terms of how it cuts. The difference that you are going to notice with the silhouette is when you start to get into more unusual materials, so things like the foam, cork, fabric certainly, things like that, where you're going to need a bit more of an in-depth control over where that cut head is actually going, and that is where the silhouette really does take over from the ScanNCut. Okay, so take two. We'll go into Affinity and do it in here. Now the difference in Affinity to doing it in Illustrator is Illustrator has the ability to trace, to do your cut line, so that you can do your registration marks. Whereas Affinity, if you want to do a cut line, you are going to be doing it manually. Something to bear in mind. And what I do like about Affinity is once you pay for it, you pay for it. Simple. So I'm going to go to print. I'm going to go to A4, and you can see straight away it puts DPI in of 300 because we're doing print and cut. That's fine, and we're just going to go to create. Now as I'm in here, I will briefly cover the assets section as well. So if you go into Studio, you'll find assets in there. It's usually open somewhere on your screen as well. So I have mine just over here. And we can set up a new library of assets. So you can see that one's from when we did the sticker group. But we've got things like different sticker ones that I've done. But you can also do your own asset collections as well. So I tend to use assets more in Publisher when I'm doing the books, but if you want to import assets, so if you've bought a collection, that's how you would bring it in. You can create your own collection, so let's go to a new category and we can rename it. So let's call it watercolour flowers. So that means that as we move through doing different collections, we can add more things to it, and it means then that we can actually pull those through whenever we need to. So if you are doing cut lines, you can create your asset as a group so that you always have that cut line comes in with the image. So it will save you time in the long run. It's just that initial setting up that's going to take a little bit longer. So I'm going to go to place. I'm going to go back to my Silhouette versus ScanNCut folder. Let's just move my layers palette out of the way so that you can see this better. And I want to place everything that is there. So, keyboard's going to be annoying. Press and Alt Shift. There we go. I'm going to add those. Now the reason it didn't select that bottom one is currently it's on the cloud, which is a bit more of a Mac thing. So basically it's trying to save space. So let's go back to place and let's pick up that one. It's going to have a think about it because it's got to download it. And I'm just clicking to place these. If you want to click and drag to size them, you can do. But just for now, I'm just going to click and bring those in. Okay. So first of all, let's start off with our reef because that's kind of going to give us a good setting up for everything else. So let's bring that in. Now if you're not in the right measurement for what you need, just right click up in the top corner. We can change that to inches. It's going to lock our ratio so that you should have it in black rather than grey. And we can type 5, enter, and it's going to scale that down. So everything needs to fit within that circle. Now, what I would do for a direct comparison, to be honest, is actually have the two open, but because my computer is struggling a bit today, it's not really an option, so I'm going to do this by eye and just kind of take a guess at where we're going. So that one kind of went that way, like so. We had that one twisted out that way. I'm going to shrink that down. And this one also went smaller. And that went and twisted kind of that way. Okay. So now we can do our shortcuts. So Command and J or Control and J on a PC is going to give you a duplicate. And we had that one go down here. Going to take another copy of that. Going to mirror it and rotate. And that went kind of there. We had another one of those. So again, Command and J or Control and J. Copy that. Rotate that round. So once you've got your layout kind of how you want your okay to go, then we can size it as a group. But just going to pull that in just a little bit. So all I'm looking at the moment is the ratio between the flowers and these little branches. Like so. So let's select all our elements. The keyboard battery's going too. Marvellous. I think I should step away from IT for the rest of the day. So, let's shrink that down. Are you sure it's not the 13th? No, let's take that down a little bit further so that it fits within our reef here. It's looking pretty good. And we can take those out. Resize those over there. Okay, so the design might vary slightly between them, but okay. Now, if we want to add a cut line, then what we can do is we can use our pen tool and we can actually trace round like so. Is it going to take you a while? Yes. Is it worth doing if you're using assets? Very much so. If you are struggling to get your point to where you want it to go, just press and hold Alt and it's going to ignore snapping. And what I would say is, especially if you're a beginner, just do a very rough cut line to start with. And quite often what I'll do, find myself doing at this point, is just holding that Alt key just to get them out of the way. Because you can always put in more nodes after. Yes, the dreaded nodes. But as long as you have kind of a starting point, you can be okay. So there's our first cut line that's kind of traced in. But if I zoom in, you can see it's all over the shop. So if we type A, it's going to go to our node tool. And we can do a little bit of work on our nodes. That one's going to go there. It's going to pull that out that way. So it's going to shrink there so that we're going to get that kind of point there. And it's up to you how much detail you want to go into as well, because at this point, remember that these flowers are quite small. If we need to add a new node, you're just going to click once. I'm going to put that node in there. If we need to do a point, if we press and hold Alt and drag, we're going to get a little notch in our line there. And I'm just going to drag out that handle there so it gets in there better. So click and it's going to put a new node in and then drag that node. Or if we click and drag, we're going to actually bend that line. So then you can see, well, actually I still need to put a new node in there. We can still use Alt when we're dragging as well. There we go. Is it going to be perfect first time? No. Does it matter? No. So, just going to drag that to there. And so on and so forth. And you can put in as many nodes as you want. So if you're thinking, okay, I really need to have that kind of pin there, and that bit move, we can do that. That bit can just drag in there because it's one curve. So move that point down there. drag that in. There we go. So this is way bigger than what you're actually going to cut, because what you're going to cut is going to be more like that. So don't get too hung up on detail, so long as it is close enough for what you want. You don't have to get it perfect. Now if at any point you do decide to put this in an asset and you're thinking, but if I do this at this small scale and my cut line's not good enough, surely if I want to use this on something bigger, it's going to be obvious. You can always edit and update your assets as well, so you don't have to keep them in that same format as what you've already done, which is useful. There we go. Another node in there. This one needs to move a little bit up here. Same with this one. That can go there. New node there. So basically a node is wherever you want it to change direction. So if you always think of it like that, it becomes a bit more obvious where you want your node to go. So like this is curving out here. We've got a rounded corner up here, but we've got a dip in here. So that to me says that we need to put in a new node right there. And pop that in there. And we can still do things like increasing the amount this is coming out here. And you can see that you've got that dip going on. Now, is it worth a little bit of time actually practicing your nodes? Yes, it is. You will get what you put into them. So if you want to spend a little bit of time practicing, very good to do so. So got quite a sharp kink in there, so I'll put a new node in there. A bit of one of there, but just make sure that when you do that, that you bring that handle back out so that we get that dip. Now, because it's a ScanNCut, the good news is that if you really don't want to do this, you don't have to. You can just use your direct cut function and go from there. And that is fine too. But the times when you'll want to use this technique is if you are doing, let's say you've got some white watercolour flowers. So there's going to be an awful lot of white, but with bits of blue, bits of grey to do your shading. Now that is all well and good when you're looking at it like this and you'll be like, yeah, I can see that flower. And even green flowers to a certain extent have this issue. But then when you come to do a direct cut on your machine, the machine can't always see it. So that is when you would want to use this technique of doing the cut line and making sure that you use registration as well to help you out. Now what I tend to do when I'm doing print and cut is I'll actually use layers. So I'm going to put in a new layer. It's going to come up saying layer 1. We're going to set that as print. Another layer which is cut. And another layer which is registration. So because we're doing this in Affinity rather than doing this through the print and cut or through the ScanNCut link, the registration that we use is entirely down to us. It's whichever you feel more confident with using on your machine. But let's put these elements in their appropriate layers. So I'm going to put my cut line into the cut layer. Now before I do that, if at this point we wanted to group that with that original flower, we can't. So I'm going to undo so that it's back in the same layer as the rest of the elements. Just going to move this over so that I can see my assets panel over here. I'm going to select both the curve and the flower. So you want to make sure that both blue, and we are going to group them. Okay. We can then click and drag and drop. And we can give it a name. So if you know the file name is, I don't know, number 6, you can give it a name of number 6 and then the kit that it came from. It's always a good idea as you're doing a library like this where we're saying, you know, we're going to just broadly do watercolour flowers, that you actually kind of credit that individual kit with that item, so that if you do need to actually get any kind of proof as to you having the license to do whatever you've done with it, then you can do so easily. Now if it wasn't grouped, so I'm going to ungroup this and we drag it in, you can see that it's going to bring them in individually. So that is why you need to do that group, so that you're locking those two things together and saying that's what I want it saved as an asset. So worth having that option to be able to do it separately too, but ideally when it comes to names you're going to want to actually rename this. So you can see it says that that one is number 6, so we can right click on it and rename it, and we can go 6 pink peony, or peonies, isn't it? Oh, I can't spell today. There we go, pink peonies, and it's the cut line. And we can see that it's going to change here. So we can do the same to our group, so rename. So 6 pink peonies, print and cut. Okay. And we can rename the last one, because you don't really need the .png, but you do need to just put reference back in, pink peonies. Okay. So at any point you've got that to refer back to. So then once you've done that and you've linked all of your items into your assets, then what you're going to do is just take that cut line, we're going to drop it into cut, we're going to take our printed elements and drop that into print. So you want it so that you can see the little blue line underneath. It's going to inset slightly on that left hand side. We're going to drop that in there. So as long as you see that you've got this kind of indent, then your images, you know you're in the right place. And registration can be anything you choose. So what I typically do is either do some little crosses, but when you're starting, sometimes what you can find a little bit easier is if we actually do some squares. So if you're doing stencil, squares are a good option too, and you only need 3 of, so that you're checking your horizontal and your vertical alignment. That's all you need. So then we can actually send that to print. Just when you do send things to print, just remember to hide that cut layer so that you're not getting a black line, and you can go from there. Now the difference to the silhouette version to doing it like this is that you don't have that greyed out area where you can't use it, because as long as nothing goes actually underneath your squares, you're going to be alright and good to go. So if you want to go up here, that's fine. If you want to go down here. But the other thing to bear in mind is your print area. So again, most inkjet printers will have a extra space at the bottom, so you'll be wanting to take that up a little bit. My laser's quite forgiving, but inkjets certainly, because of the way that they work, you'll tend to find that they have that wider gap at the bottom edge. And to find out what that is, you should be able to find it either in your print driver or actually in your manual. So most printers these days have an online manual that you can go on and it will give you information such as printable areas. So you print that exactly the same way in terms of going to print, and that takes us up to the hour. So what I will do very quickly is just, let's do that so we can print these and then we will be good to go tomorrow. Let's stick the card in the printer because I forgot to do that while I was over here before. There we go. Make sure your printer wakes up. And let's go to print. And usually if you've got a really good drive, it will actually show in your preview if you've got like a printable area that's going to kind of crop into your artwork. And I just want to go to medium quality. I'm going to tell it to take it from the manual feed, and again I'm going to set it to that same photoglossy paper. So as my printer is a laser one, it's really important if you are using a thicker material that you tell it that you are doing so in some way or form, so that it gets up to the required temperature. So you'll find that it will need to transfer it at a higher temperature than normal. So thinking about it. Always sounds good. So I'm going to pop back overhead. Okay, and then we can look at the difference between the prints. So if you are really focused on being colour accurate, it's good that you get to see it like this, in that you can see the difference between the two. Oh, Kareem, have you found a little hedgehog? Okay, so we have the registration marks on the Silhouette software, the manual ones that we've done here. Now, if you had done this on the ScanNCut link like I wanted to, and basically the way that the registration marks will look is that you have like a little target circle with a little line underneath which indicates to you which way to put the card on the mat. So the line goes at the bottom. So it's quite important to remember that you get it the right way up, but apart from that, if it's slightly on the skew, it won't mind. Just make sure that you do get it the right way up. So there you go. Didn't do too bad on size, a little bit small on these bits, but we'll see how it goes. We can always chop into these if we need to. So that's kind of the computery side for the differences between the two. So tomorrow what I'm going to do is actually cut these out so you can see the difference between the process. Whether we use the registration marks and the cut lines, or if we go down the route of doing the direct scan with the ScanNCut, and then the actual cut lines for our silhouette, and then we can assemble that all together. And then I did put in a little extra bit. So I wanted to actually show the drawing on the silhouette, so this is definitely one you're going to want to watch for sure. And I want to do some curved text. Now, those of you that know your ScanNCut well know that doing curved text on the machine is an absolute nightmare, so I will be doing that in Canvas so that you can see how we work that. But I'm also going to show how we can use our basic shapes from our designs from our ScanNCut and take those into Canvas to be able to use the fit to path function, which is something that we haven't covered in much depth, so I thought it'd be really good to kind of take that through. Oh, excuse me. So, I hope you've had a good morning and that you're looking forward to seeing the project finished. So we've got some absolutely yummy colours. So in terms of the colour differences, there isn't much difference. So if you are looking at colour accuracy, it's not bad, look, between the two different software. Which pen holder we use, I wonder. Oh, I wonder. I will be using the 3D thumbprint holders in both machines, so you can hopefully be able to see it with the same pen. So I have some new pens to try. So too sneaky. They've been waiting very patiently for me to have a little go. So they're not mega expensive, but they do have metal tips. So I'm always on the lookout for fine liners with metal tips now, because they work so much better in your machines. So when those popped up, and they were only in Home Bargains, and they're less than £2 a pack, so you know. It's good to find the bargains when you see them. Yes, definitely love new pens. I'm a total penaholic. I'm Natalie, and I definitely have a pen problem. Namely, no more room for pens at the moment, so it's like... So, take care, and I will see you tomorrow to finish off this project. If you have any questions about the software, and I will try and put up a version in Illustrator as well, so that you can see those registration marks and the difference that it kind of makes there too. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to like the video or love the video, or however you like to do it, and also to subscribe. If you go on YouTube, there are loads of videos that you can go back and watch again. So sometimes it's easier to search on YouTube than it is on Facebook for different classes. So if you go onto our channel, which is youtube.com/plannercraft, then there is a little box on that page that says search, and that will actually search just my channel for all the videos that we've done from sort of beginning of lockdown onwards. So take care and bye.